Petteri from Focal here. So in this third part of videos covering Focal workflows, we'll go through different action options in more detail and show some example use cases. If you haven't checked out the previous parts, I suggest you start from there. Links to those can be found below this video. But let's start from the logic options. So condition and filter. Condition is an else if. So if conditions are met, the workflow continues. If not, it ends there. Filters narrow down the things it works with. So all of these support very granular filtering, things like asset metadata or AI autofill values, tags, and so on. In this case, when I'm using a board, you can see that I can reference basically anything in the board task or assets associated to it. But let's then jump into the actions. So these are the ones available at the time of publishing this video, but our team is busy adding more. So one very useful thing to remember is that inside actions, you can use the @ sign to refer to a bunch of global values such as your space information, as well as anything you've already handled inside the workflow itself, associated assets, any of the previous steps, and all the information contained within, which comes useful in many of the examples I'm about to show you. But since I already kicked it off, let's start from update media. So with this, you can set new values to different fields, such as changing an approval status based on trigger conditions. Let's move on to the upload nodes then. So upload nodes are available for Meta, TikTok, and YouTube. Remember to set the filter conditions so that only the ready media you want in there gets uploaded. I'll show a practical example of this later, but it's good to remember to do this so you don't accidentally push in-progress assets to the ad accounts. The process itself is quite simple. You just select which ad account you want things to get uploaded to. You do need to authorize the connection first through Meta or the ad platform you're uploading to, so make sure you have the right permissions on, for example, Meta Business Manager. But next up, we have the Slack message node. You can send Slack messages either to different channels or as a DM to any Slack space you have access to, although you might need to check from your organization admin that you can actually authorize Focal to send these messages. Any channel you have access to can be found in the channel list once you are connected. Now, it's useful to remember the @ sign referencing here as well. You could use it to send file attachments or pull the message from an AI node to be sent here, for example. You can also mention specific users. You can also update or create tasks in a board. For example, you could assign a review task to a specific person whenever a new asset is put into the review stage, but you could just as easily update basically any column with any value available. So this is extremely flexible. Then we have the Ask AI node, which you can use to prompt an LLM with all of the creative context in the workflow. This is great for creating a summary of completed assets or tasks, for example, and this could then again be chained with a Slack message to send a custom notification on Slack, and you can refer back to the AI response here as well. For more advanced use cases, you can also use this to send out structured outputs such as a JSON object. And the last advanced option is sending HTTP requests. So these are best gone through with your developer just to make sure you set everything up correctly. But essentially, this allows you to send and request information to and from other systems in a number of formats. For example, if you need to send or receive data from another project management system your broader organization uses. But that's an overview of the available nodes. Then let's set up a few practical workflows. So here's one practical example. You can send a Slack message when a task is set to ready to launch. This is a great use case for informing media buyers that new assets are ready for their campaigns, for example. The way you set this up is you do a trigger when a task is updated in a specific board, and then you set the status to, for example, ready to launch. And again, you could use a number of other conditions here as well, such as assigned to a specific person or having the right keyword or anything like that, really. And after that, you connect it to a Slack node. Again, you choose the workspace you want to send it to, which channel or a DM, and then you configure what message gets pinged. In this one, I've set it so that it sends the name of the task, what due date it had, and then it just marks that it's ready to launch. You could also include links here and things like that. Then the second example is when a media is set to approved state, you upload it to ad platforms. This one is also very straightforward. You can, of course, narrow this down with further conditions than just approval state, again, like in the previous example, and then you follow that with the upload nodes. You simply tell it to use the media in the workflow, and then you set the ad account you want it to upload to. And there's no need to set separate workflows for the different ad platforms unless you want to, of course. You can use the same one. And if you have different requirements for different ad platforms, you can filter this differently based on your needs. So for example, as a condition, I could set up if I have labels for which platform I'm using, or let's say for YouTube, I only want stuff that is in landscape aspect ratio, I could then do that as a sort of follow-up condition here as well. So one example we haven't discussed too much is the API trigger. Essentially, you can call Focal from external systems and send some data in and then do things with that data. What you can do here, for example, is send a brief in from a third-party system and set the brief text in a Focal board and update the status of the task as well. So when you're using the API trigger, there is an API URL that you need to then use in your external system to send the information in. If you prefer, you can also configure things like only receive the information in a particular field. But once that arrives, you can then feed it to an AI node, for example, and you can tell it that, okay, in this case, it's a brief sent in from Slack and formatted in the following way, so it can be put into a Focal rich text field. And then based on the AI response, you put it into the brief column in a Focal board and you set the status into backlog. Obviously, this is very flexible for sending data in from external systems. So I encourage you to try this out. And again, if you're not sure how to use it exactly, it's a good idea to talk to your developers how to leverage this better or get in touch with the Focal team. But that's it for these practical examples. We'll be sharing more of these later. I hope you found this video useful. And if you have any questions, just let us know in the comments below and happy to elaborate further. See you in the next one.